97.7 WAOV Studios at 6th and Busserin Streets in downtown Vincennes. It's time now for legal news and views. Now, here's Dave Rolligan and Jeff Cobb with legal news and views.
Welcome, legal news and views. I'm Jeff.
Dave here.
And we're here live at the old Ward House, corner of 6th and Busserin, downtown Vincennes. And now I really hear myself. And you're like, whoa, let me turn this down a little bit. That just blows the old eardrum out. Try this better? Yeah. Downtown Vincennes, live. You can come join us if you wish. But by far the better way is to call 812-882-3737. Operator standing by. And we'll take any call, but hopefully it's of a legal nature, because after all, Dave and I are lawyers.
As far as you know.
Well, that's right. We were at one time good lawyers. Goes on his phone.
So I lost the story. There it is. Apparently, have you heard there's a cream cheese shortage? Apparently, their Kraft is offering $20 so that you don't try to make cheesecake for the holidays. There's a supply chains disruption of the cheesecake ingredient. So Kraft Heinz brand announced Wednesday it will reimburse 18,000 consumers $20 for a holiday dessert and encourage you to buy something else. You can sign up for a chance for the $20 digital reward at spreadthefeeling.com starting at noon Friday. According to the fine print, those who got one of the limited spots will have to submit a store or restaurant receipt dated between the 17th and Christmas Eve with a dessert or dessert ingredient. So it's kind of a creative reverse marketing. We can't sell you the cream cheese, but think about us during the holidays.
Yeah, sounds cheesy.
Ouch.
You would have thought Dave would say that. Again, 812-882-3737 for your call in. If you don't, Dave and I go on our merry way. If you've been a listener, know I like to kind of refresh our listeners on cases we've talked about before. And of course, the one that keeps giving is Ghislaine, what was her? Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell. And the prosecution has charged her with soliciting sex from minors for Jeffrey Epstein, the millionaire, maybe billionaire, who killed himself in jail while being held there. Prosecution told the court the case would take 6 weeks, but finished its case in 1 week. And today, Ghislaine Maxwell starts with her witnesses. Nothing yet reported. We'll keep you advised, of course, as it does. Could be a verdict in on this one before Christmas, the way they're moving, as fast as they're moving. Question, of course, always is, will Ghislaine Maxwell testify? Trying to prove to the jury that she did not do these things. She was just merely, she started off as an intimate relationship with Epstein, but she said later she was nothing more than an employee.
The house mom.
Yep.
For wayward children. This may not be a surprise. Amazon needs to apparently crack down on the bait and switch listings. So you're looking for something, you may look at the highest rated ones, you click on it, and it switches you to something else that you're not looking for. This guy was looking for can openers, and when we looked at the comments, it was all about some kind of a garlic press. So they somehow seize control of the highly rated pages and then substitute the product because they figured out, you look at the stars and a lot of people don't actually read the ratings. I shop on Amazon a lot and I never read the ratings, and sometimes the quality is not what I expected because it's not really an Amazon product. It's some guy in his garage.
Law enforcement has put out articles, notices, 'tis the season for schemes and scams and deceptive websites particularly. Be careful out there. You may find what you want, and it may not be a legitimate website.
HTTPS, secure website, is one of the keys to look for, and make sure the actual address matches what you're actually looking for.
Yes, good tips.
Not
Again,
just the tips, just the good tips.
continuing on updating, related to the Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein saga, is Virginia Giuffre. Virginia is the one famous for being in the picture with Prince Andrew at the time she was 17, and who is now suing Prince Andrew and many others for the fact that she was recruited and into sexual encounters, she says, with Prince Andrew and with Epstein and others when she was 17 years of age. Now, her lawyers filed here in the United States. This is unrelated to the Ghislaine Maxwell because they already have 4 other accusers who testified in that, and they didn't want to use Giuffre, who has been a little bit inconsistent with her testimony. But now Prince Andrew's lawyers have come up with a novel legal approach. Virginia is pursuing under what was called the New York Child Victims Act, passed in 2019, which allowed victims to sue their alleged abusers if they were younger than 18 when the abuse took place. Andrew's lawyers say that's unconstitutional because the age of consent in New York, then and now, is 17 years of age. So that if she can consent, it is not, in a sense, statutory liability. So there's we'll keep track of that as well to see how that motion plays out. But I'm sure Prince Andrew is well represented.
It's a reverse fairy tale. She kissed the prince and he turned into a frog.
Ooh.
In the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, the defense wanted their witnesses to testify under pseudonyms. Well, we're going to call this witness to defend our client, but we don't want you to know who they are for real, to protect their identity, because this is a case where guilt by association could be embarrassing for our witnesses.
Well, there were 4 women who testified. One used her real name, Annie Farmer. The other 3 who testified against Ghislaine used...
Right. That was to protect the victims. They were trying to protect the defense witnesses, and the judge says, no, real names.
Right.
It's fast. All right, here's a quick one. Former First Lady Melania Trump is launching an NFT platform, a non-fungible tokens. This is really her first public activity since she left the White House. And a non-fungible token is some kind of an original thing they put on blockchain, and it seems to me they're outlandishly priced. Some of these are just digital representations, original art, and so forth. This is called Melania's Vision. It's a watercolor art by Marc-Antoine Coulon portraying her, and an audio recording from her with a message of hope. The limited edition will be sold for $1 Solana, that's S-O-L-A-N-A, that's the platform, which is about trading at $187. She didn't get much positive press coverage while she was First Lady, and people were already saying, this sounds like a scam to me.
Of course they are.
She could not catch a break.
Well, let's take our first break here on Legal News and Views, 97.7 FM, WAOV. You can call now, 812-882-3737, and you will have priority when we get back after these messages.
When you want a new Chevrolet, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet in Princeton has them. We're close to everywhere you are. Find new roads and find your perfect Chevrolet. See them all at Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, BuickGMC.com. When you want a new Buick or GMC, the only place to go is Steve Faulkner in Princeton. Great pricing, excellent selection, and we're close to everywhere you are. See them all at Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, BuickGMC.com. The 97.7 WAOV forecast now from the Brian Stevens Erie Insurance Weather Center. Showers in the forecast today. Temperatures falling back into the lower 50s. For tonight, partly cloudy, low 35. Tomorrow, rain again, a high expected near 48. Chance of rain at 50% Saturday and a high near 47. Join us for Knox County Today with Ed Ballinger. Weekday mornings at 10 on 97.7 WAOV.
And we're back. Legal News and Views. I'm Jeff.
Dave here. A lot of people are saying that the Ghislaine Maxwell is really just, she's a stand-in for Jeffrey.
Well, that's the lawyer's theory. She's being picked on because Jeffrey Epstein is dead.
He's not here. And over 150 women received money from a compensation fund set up by his estate for alleged sexual abuse. And part of the language in the release, they were required to sign, they had to drop any existing lawsuits against Ghislaine Maxwell. So before they got money, they had to promise not to sue his ex-girlfriend.
I think they knew there was liability there. Alex Murdoch is, again, a follow-up. Alex, age 53, was perhaps a lawyer in South Carolina, Hampton County. His father and grandfather and probably even great-grandfather before them were in the law firm that did very well in this small town with many personal injury cases and contingency fees. Where we last left Alex is he had tried to have himself killed so his son could collect a $10 million insurance policy, but the police now say that was all just a setup and a fraud, and so he's been charged with lying to the police. There's also investigation going on into the death of his wife now that he has come up with no money and in severe financial problems. Alex himself blames it on an opioid addiction. And in a related matter, Alex's housekeeper, who was found dead in the house, this place just gets creepier and creepier. He represented her sons in the lawsuit and apparently collected a lot of money that he was going to try and steal. But he has now agreed to a $4.3 million judgment in the case, subject to court-appointed receivers who now control his assets. Well, here's the deal. It's a nice, big, large judgment, but according to the receivers, he doesn't have any money. In fact, the court set bond at $7 million for him to get out of jail, and they said he couldn't even make $100,000 if he wanted to. So Alex Murdoch continues the downward spiral.
Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo wrote a book about his great job during COVID.
Speaking of downward spiral.
And the Ethics Committee has said, you used state time and resources to write the book, so turn over the $5 million you got from the book. Of course, Cuomo was threatening to sue. He had made a promise that he wouldn't use his staff or any government-connected assets to produce the book. So he's threatened to sue to keep the $5 million. And some people out there saying he ought to be careful about filing a lawsuit because they could find a lot more dirt on him as he tries to defend his book, which is entitled American Crisis, Leadership Lessons from the COVID-19 Pandemic, Andrew Cuomo. So I'm wondering if those book sales did better or worse. worse after he resigned in disgrace.
He's lost all the proceeds.
He's going to sue to try to keep him.
Okay.
He has 30, if they said they'd give back the $5 million you got a year ago, I might have it somewhere. Hard to find.
Well, another follow-up, though this story was back in late 2019, it involves the McDonald's Corporation. Then CEO Steve Easterbrook.
That's my next story. That's another payback.
Well, Easterbrook was fired in late 2019 after admitting to exchanging videos and text messages in a non-physical consensual relationship with one of his employees. What is that all about?
Fries with that?
At the time of his firing, Easterbrook assured McDonald's that there were no other instances, and as a result, McDonald's gave him all of his compensation, deferred compensation for being CEO. Well, it wasn't too much longer that it turns out there were other instances involving at least 2 other employees of McDonald's that were actual intimate sexual relationships. As a result, McDonald's said, that's it, we want our money back. Now they have reached a settlement where Easterbrook is going to pay back $105 million to McDonald's. I don't know how much he got, but I'm pretty sure that's not everything he got.
This guy stopped his wife from driving while intoxicated in Clanton, Alabama. Jason Todd went into the Friends Steakhouse in Clanton where his band was playing the final set of the night, and he thought she was too drunk to drive home. She was demanding to drive herself. She began walking and spelled out in court records and police reports and did not make it before being struck and killed by a vehicle. So they're charging him. Local police officers charged Todd with manslaughter for the death of Anderson, 35, throwing his wife's keys across the road, sending her to a precarious, deadly search. So he's trying to stop her from driving, apparently tossed her keys, and that may be why she wandered into traffic. So it's an interesting theory. This is like the parents of the school shooter, charging them with manslaughter. Back in my law school days, there used to be something, an intervening cause, which would be the shooter taking a gun from the house and killing people, or an intoxicated person walking into traffic. So I'm sure those will be ripe for follow-ups.
It was either last week or 2 weeks ago, we did the story of the 24-year-old model, Christy Giles-Celliers, and her friend, Hilda Marcella, who died at separate hospitals when their bodies were dumped out of cars by masked men. They both died of heroin overdoses, though the friends say neither one was taking heroin, and it would have had to have been involuntary. They started the night with 3 women. One did not go to later parties that the other 2 went to, and it seemed like a very hard case to crack, but somehow they've done it. 3 arrests have been made. One has been charged with suspicion of manslaughter, while the other 2 are on suspicion of being accessories to a crime. The one that was arrested was an extra on the on the NCIS TV show. And so the police had to use a little bit of a ruse to get him off the set before they arrested him. Did not make much of a deal about it. I'm sure we'll be hearing more on that case.
Ken Mirza, 24, was in his Toronto home, and he found an oddly shaped Pringle chip, and he was trying to sell it for $500. I remember seeing an article that someone had found a weird chip and sold it for $1,000, so I put on Facebook Marketplace. He's a grad student. I posted other things and get 6 or 7 responses. This chip has got him 60 or 70 responses. And so far, the top offer has been $300. He's going to wait a week and see if he gets a better offer.
Final follow-up, Parkland school shooting back on Valentine's Day 2018, 17 people killed, many wounded or injured when a shooter opened up at the Parkland High School. Lawsuits followed, and in this particular case, the school district was sued. The school district, by state law, had a limit on damages of $300,000 per person, but they decided that they weren't going to go with that cap, and so now the school district has paid $26 million into a settlement fund for the families of all the victims. What is a little bit of old news, I guess, is that the families settled with the FBI. And then the FBI is going to pay them $127 million for failure to prevent the attack. Now, there's obviously evidence here I don't know about as to why the school would be liable and the FBI would be liable.
FBI apparently had information that they failed to follow up on. This person might be a danger.
So now that's not the end of it either. I think there is still some ongoing lawsuits against other possible culpable parties.
This happened a couple of years ago. The truck driver was just sentenced to 110 years for an accident. He was hauling lumber in a semi. His brakes failed. He ran into stopped traffic, which was stopped on Interstate 70 because there had been an earlier wreck.
Been there, done that.
And because his brakes failed, I think 4 people died, and even at the sentencing, the judge said, you know, if it was up to me, I wouldn't impose this sentence, but it's mandatory minimum sentences for the charges that he was convicted of. And of course, his lawyer is going to appeal that, saying that the judge did what he had to do under the law, but the law's wrong. So I don't know if he's going to be able to get an appellate court to say, yeah, you're right, the law's wrong, and you shouldn't have to do it. He had no drugs or alcohol in his system, didn't appear to be road rage, and he'd stopped to check his brakes before. It's a downhill pass, which he was on a downhill run of that. And once the brakes went out, there was just not much he could do about it, so we may follow up with that. I don't know if some drug laws have mandatory minimum sentences. It takes away the judge's discretion, so they actually have to try to get that overturned as unconstitutional, I suppose.
We have done many stories in the past about transgender students and the use of restrooms with the arena split. I think the federal government issued rules and regulations saying that the transgender students should use whatever restroom they are now identifying with that gender. Here in Missouri School District went the other way and adopted a rule that says you use the restroom you were born as. And a good example why, and perhaps a tough time to be on a school board because the student sued. The student changed gender at age 9, but in high school was required, she was born female, identifies male, but she was blocked from using the boys' bathroom and locker room. And she sued, and the trial court initially threw the case out, saying, there's no cause of action here. However, the Missouri Supreme Court said, yeah, there is. It's for sexual discrimination, and threw it back to the trial court. Trial court held the trial, and the jury has given the transgender student $4 million, about $175 in damages, and the rest are punitive. Now, we'll probably hear more on this one as it gets appealed. But that would be fairly new case law in my 45 years of practice.
Be more legal news and views, 97.7 FM WAOV. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
From the 97.7 WAOV News Center, I'm Tom Lee reporting. The Vincent City Council discussed the food truck ordinance at their latest city council session. The proposal to clarify the ordinance will be considered in 2022 by the council's Special Events Committee. Council President Tim Salter says the key to the committee sessions is getting the food truck owner suggestions on regulation. No dates have been set yet for the committee consideration in early next year. Both the Vincennes Police and Fire Departments are working toward filling vacancies on their departments. VFD Chief Brett Bobe told the city's Board of Works they have 3 firemen who are in the hiring process. Also, City Police Chief John Hillenbrand says conditional offers have been extended to 5 of the 6 candidates on the police hiring list. Those applicants are also in advanced testing to determine if they're eligible to fill the 5 open city positions. If all 8 candidates are approved, they would bring both to full staff. And the National Reads Across America Day will be this Saturday. A special program is planned for 11 a.m. at Vincent City Cemeteries on Willow Street. Volunteers can simply show up this Saturday at 11. They're being sought to distribute wreaths at grave sites of veterans that day. We've got more at newsknoxcounty.com. I'm Tom Lee, WAOV News.
Strength for corn, soybeans, and wheat. I'm Eric Pfeiffer, and this is Hoosier Ag Today. Strong demand for soy oil and a lower U.S. dollar contributed to higher grain futures today. Commodity traders also liked the upbeat assessment of the economy provided by the Federal Reserve yesterday afternoon. In the markets on Thursday, March corn up 5.5 to 5.91 1/4, up 5.5 on the May as well, 5.92 3/4, 5 1/4 better on the July, 5.91 3/4, up 14 3/4 on January beans, 12.77 1/4, 12.78 1/4 on March beans, up 13, May up 11, 12.84. March wheat finished up 14.5 at 7.70 1/2, up 13 on the May to 7.75. In livestock, February live cattle up 47 to 137.05, and February lean hogs up over $1 to 80.35. Find market analysis in the Hoosier Ag Today podcast at HoosierAgToday.com. I'm Eric Pfeiffer, Hoosier Ag Today.
This is a farmer service announcement. If you're stuck in the routine of commodity beans, market fluctuations, and high input costs, I've got some news. I played that game for years. It's time for a change. That's what I'm doing with Benson Hill. I produce their high-protein, non-GMO soybeans for the growing plant-based protein market. I can get paid for both protein and bushels, which equates to a better ROI. They still have 2022 full production. Act of God contracts available. Call Benson Hill at 314-594-7624 or visit BensonHillFarmers.com.
Your forecast is brought to you by El Corral. If you're looking for the best Mexican restaurant, choose El Corral in Vincennes. They have a huge menu. They also have a large selection of Mexican beers, tequilas, and cocktails. El Corral Mexican Restaurant, 630 Kimmel Road in Vincennes.
The 97.7 WAOV forecast now from the Bryant Stevens Erie Insurance Weather Center. Showers in the forecast today. Temperatures falling back into the lower 50s. For tonight, partly cloudy, low 35. Tomorrow, rain again, a high expected near 48. Chance of rain of 50% Saturday and a high near 47. Join us for Knox County Today with Ed Ballinger. Weekday mornings at 10 on 97.7 WAOV.
And we're back. Legal News and Views. I'm Jeff.
Dave here.
And time now for that regularly scheduled segment of the program known as... I don't know what's going on here. I'm having a hard time finding current least competent criminals. I don't know if suddenly they become competent, or if maybe there just aren't that many criminals, though I doubt that's the case. So I'm going back to 2005, August the 5th, a story from the Las Vegas Review. Jeremy Suggs at that time was 21 years of age. He had a partner known as the Jap, who was his getaway driver. The Jap talked him into robbing the Wells Fargo Bank, assuring him there were no surveillance cameras. But of course, there were. And what they caught was not pretty. Jeremy Suggs walked into the bank with a gun. I don't know why, but he filled out a deposit slip with his name on it and left that in his wallet behind, which is good enough to be incompetent. But he also couldn't get anybody to listen to him. So he fired 2 shots from his gun. According to witnesses, one narrowly missed Jeremy's head. He even counted down twice, saying, "I'm going to shoot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nobody ever listened to him or gave him any money. So he walked out saying, I'm going to go rob Citibank. So Jeremy from 2005 is our nominee for this week's
Least Competent Criminals.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think I heard on the news break, wreaths across America at the cemetery this Saturday at 11.
Yeah.
Always a nice event.
Controversial, apparently.
The wreaths across America is controversial.
Yeah, I've got the story right here. I never knew it, but there is apparently a not-for-profit group to protect military members' religious freedoms. According to the leader of the group, wreaths across America are carpet bombing veteran cemeteries with Christian gang symbols.
The wreath is a Christian symbol?
Yep.
I did not know that.
Taken. This guy is not a real, from his pictures, a handsome fellow, Mikey Weinstein, president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. He says that they put the wreaths on tombstones indiscriminately, Christians and non-Christians alike, without even asking the families if they have any consents. Reads across
The families buy these and place them themselves.
Well, Reads Across America Executive Director Karen Worcester said that her organization isn't even Christian or political. But she said that their policy is against laying wreaths, graves marked with a Jewish Star of David, and that they have never been asked not to place wreaths, even for other non-Christian faiths such as Islam. If they were asked not to do it, they wouldn't do it. I think it's a big to-do about nothing. I think there's a small, Mikey Weinstein runs probably a very small organization that might just be him.
Coincidentally, I have a Weinstein story. Harvey Weinstein is appealing his conviction for rape. The 5-judge panel of a New York appellate court seems skeptical of one of the arguments brought by the prosecution. He argues that the outcome of his trial was tainted by the judge's decision to include a woman who was writing a book about sexual harassment on the jury, and also that they let other witnesses who were not part of the charging documents testify, and people who had nothing to do with this particular crime testify, when the judges were saying, "You're just trying to convict this guy of being not a very nice guy." So not unlike Bill Cosby, there's a lot of speculation that he might have that conviction overturned. However, he's still facing similar charges in California, so I'm sure that will be another follow-up story if that's overturned. I think the prosecution had plenty. So gilding the lily and overkill, as the judge asked, probably was not necessary.
Yeah. We did a story just last week about the minister, Joe Osteen, who has the Lakewood Church. That story was about the plumber finding $600,000 in the wall. This story is totally different. Apparently, Osteen went to a restaurant. He is famous in California, and a lot of people came up wanting pictures and autographs. Working at that restaurant was a Nick Stanley. Nick Stanley was standing beside Osteen when someone was taking a video, and Stanley, I don't know who he said it to, but it was on the video, says, "You know you're a piece of SHIT, right?" Osteen apparently just kept smiling and ignored him. And Stanley went ahead and looks in the camera and says, "He knows." Stanley doesn't work at the restaurant anymore. And he claims that Austin's people harassed the restaurant into firing him. Not only does the church deny this, but the restaurant denies it. Basically, the restaurant put out a statement saying Nick Stanley was fired because he was a jerk, and that they do not want people who work there to treat any customer of the restaurant that way. Probably be a lawsuit somewhere.
These three people could be least competent. Apparently, a U.S. Postal Service worker was delivering mail upstate New York one Saturday morning when three people had been expecting a special delivery approached her. The post person had delivered several packages to one of their homes in Rochester earlier that morning, but none contained what Mark Rogers, Joseph Way, and Tashara Levins had been waiting for, which was $70,000 worth of cocaine.
Good.
As the postal worker stepped off the porch, the trio accused her of stealing it. Of course, she knows where they live, and she probably knows their names. And she's a postal worker.
And what did they say? We're accusing you of stealing our cocaine?
When the carrier denied taking the drugs, they forced her to go back to her mail truck. One of them ransacked the vehicle trying to look for the missing package. When they didn't find it, they told her you're coming with us. So they take a stupid crime and turn it into kidnapping.
Yeah.
They put her into Levin's SUV for a 2.5-hour kidnapping, in which, according to court records, they threatened to kill the mail carrier, her children, and her mother. All three were arrested and charged for what happened on November 16, 2019. More than 2 years later, none of their lawyers responded to requests for comment. So it's dangerous and illegal to ship drugs by mail.
Yes.
Illegal drugs, I should say.
Breaking news, and by that I mean just about an hour ago, the story broke about Chris Noth, and this will be
And just like that.
an entertainer. Chris is known on the Sex and the City show.
Sex
and
and
the
the
recent,
City. Sex and the City.
Okay, thank you. And the recent revival called And Just Like That. His nickname is Mr. Big. And in the first episode of Just Like That, he dies after doing his 1,000th exercise routine on a Peloton.
Peloton wasn't happy either.
Of a heart attack. That's all irrelevant. Apparently, because of the notoriety of the show and the ending of the show, two women now claim that they were sexually assaulted by the actor Chris Noth. The women so far are using names that they to hide their identities. Zoe, now 40, and Lily, now 31. Zoe, now 40, says when she was 22, in other words, 18 years ago, that he basically grabbed her and raped her. She had been there at his invitation, was an actor, knew him as an actor, but had told him no, and yet he continued. Lily has a similar story, though under different times and circumstances. Both seem to have backup corroboration in that at the time of the attacks, they told other people and identified Noth. Noth states it never happened. He says, I know what no means, and any sex I had was consensual. But I have a feeling that he's in the crosshairs right now, and he's now 60, I think, so I don't know what impact it will have on his career or not. And especially after they killed him off of the only show he was a regular on. Well, no, he had another regular show.
Well, we'll be right back. 97.7 FM WAOV. Stay tuned.
My daughter's not a headline. My girl, she's not someone's agenda.
What she is irreplaceable.
COVID hospitalizations of young people have tripled since the start of summer. So I talked to my... Even from the Delta variant.
We can do this. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
You'll be talking to family and friends on the phone during the holidays, so make sure everyone enjoys the conversation, including those with hearing loss. RelayIndiana.com provides captioned telephones that allow the hard of hearing to have normal phone conversations through voice recognition technology. The other person's words appear on an easy-to-read screen. Don't let those with hearing loss become isolated during the holidays. Get the CapTel captioned telephone from Relay Indiana. Learn more at Relay.
The 97.7 WAOV forecast now from the Bryant-Stevens Area Insurance Weather Center. Showers in the forecast today. Temperatures falling back into the lower 50s. For tonight, partly cloudy, low 35. Tomorrow, rain again, a high expected near 48. Chance of rain of 50% Saturday and a high near 47. Join us for Knox County Today with Ed Ballinger. Weekday mornings at 10 on 97.7 WAOV.
And we're back, Legal News and Views. I'm Jeff.
Dave here. 15 minutes left. Plenty of time to call. 812-882-3737.
I'm going to stick with the law and entertainment. In this case, a producer for CNN. His name's John Griffin. He's been a longtime producer at CNN and right now is known as the producer of their morning show, which I forget the name of because I've never watched it. Apparently, for some time now, he has been soliciting mothers with young daughters to come to his house, especially in Vermont, a big kind of a mansion there, and has had some takers, including a mother who brought her 9-year-old from Nevada to Boston, where he picks them up, drives them to Vermont home, and there ensues all kinds of sexual encounters, both with the mother and with the daughter.
Take a page from the playbook of Epstein.
Well, no, he apparently even had devices. He was kind of heavy into the bondage deals. The mother of one of the children ended up in the hospital as a result of having a night with him and 3 other men. And according to the story, as it evolves, it's still very much an evolving story, the FBI knew about all this 18 months ago, but just now arrested him. It was charges of inducing minors for sex. I'm sure going to be some kind of civil lawsuit for why it took so long to get him arrested.
This is a billionaire who is currently at the space station and defended spending tens of millions of dollars on the trip, saying to his critics, well, perhaps you've never been to space. Japanese billionaire currently on the space station, Yasuko Maezawa, said, once you're in space, you realize how much it's worth by having this amazing experience. It's an amazing experience, but his critics are saying, wouldn't that money be better spent, like feeding hungry people and things like that? It's only accessible for those who have time and are physically fit and those who can afford it, but you don't know if it's still going to be a case in years to come. So,
and I get a kick out of this kind of a criticism. It's by people. They have, some of the critics, they'll have money of their own that they choose to go out and eat. They don't give it to the poor. They choose.
They do, if they tip the waitress.
They choose to take a trip. They don't give it to the poor. They choose to do this and that, and it's their money, and they have the right to choose, and I'm not real sure why they're so critical of somebody who has lots of money deciding to waste it on a trip to outer space.
Well, obviously, you've never been to space. He doesn't.
I know. I would go in a heartbeat, but I'm not
just as
there, and I'm not Michael Strahan.
This is from Brazil, Indiana. A man who pleaded guilty to attacking a 13-year-old girl who was attending an Indiana University violin camp has now been charged with conspiracy to commit murder for allegedly trying to hire his jail cellmate to kill the victim's parents and a dozen other people. So he's chatting up his cellmate. I got 14 people here who want you to kill.
Well, I got a ticket out of jail.
Dong Wook Ka, 19, allegedly provided a hit list and a map to the 39-year-old man who was his cellmate at the Clay County Detention Center in Brazil. Crow of Bloomington believed his cellmate was a gang member who had arranged the torture and killing of 14 people. So he just didn't want them dead, he wanted them tortured. He appeared in Clay County Court for an initial hearing. The victim's parents, defense witnesses, 2 prosecutors, and a journalist who covered the case were among the targeted individuals. So, that's probably not the best way to, or best place to recruit a hitman.
Yeah. Let's go to sports and the law. Urban Meyer, very successful college coach, 2 national championships at Florida, and then very successful seasons at Ohio State, left both schools because of health reasons. Then, about a year ago, signed a 5-year contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars to be the professional coach of the team. He's 13 games into the season, his record is 2-11, and he is fired. And so now the issue is, he's going to get the rest of his contract, which is estimated to be $48 million. Yeah, that's right. His total contract was $60. He got $12 million for the first year. Right now, the odds are that he will get it. Jaguars are saying they fired him for cause, but I don't know that they have set forth sufficient cause yet.
This is a claim that a man in New Zealand received 10 COVID shots in one day. He's being investigated. Apparently, you're not required to show ID in New Zealand to get the shot. So apparently he was paid to impersonate other people who didn't want the vaccine so he could get a card for them. To assume another person's identity and receive a medical treatment is dangerous. I'm not sure getting the vaccine 10 times in a day is healthy anyway. They say higher doses result in more general vaccine reactions, so he has committed a crime, but he probably is COVID-proof.
Sports and the law, Formula One, probably not heavy in our listening audience. Had a wonderful season, came down to the final race with 2 drivers tied for the championship in points. One was Lewis Hamilton going for his 8th world championship with a Mercedes, and Red Bull's Max Verstappen, the Dutchman, going for his 1st. Lewis Hamilton was leading by quite a bit when the race went to a yellow flag because of a car that had spun off the track and put Verstappen, who was on fresh tires, right behind Lewis Hamilton, allowing him to pass Lewis Hamilton on the last lap and be crowned the champion. It didn't go over well with Mercedes, who filed a notice of intention to appeal, but has since said, nope, we're not going to appeal, but we, quote, have lost confidence in racing, end quote.
So when
These teams spend $300 million a year on these cars.
So when did he get new tires? Young?
Right out of when the caution came out, yeah.
Gainesville, Florida, I believe, was upset over his neighbor's parking habits at his apartment complex. Sprayed fire from a commercial flamethrower toward a car with 3 teenagers inside. So that's how you solve your parking dispute. Abrams, 57, of Gainesville, is facing 3 counts of felony aggravated assault with a deadly weapon without intending to kill. He posted a $15,000 bond last week and is awaiting a decision whether they will formally file charges. Another one of the teens said Abrams frequently sprayed the flamethrower to scare off guests at her home. When he shoots it, it lights the whole road up, and it's like it's daylight outside. So trying to scare people off because you're unhappy with their parking at your neighborhood is probably, that would be right up there with least competent criminals.
The world of swimming gives us this next story. Frenchman, Yannick Agnel, and I don't blame you if you're saying who. In 2012, London Olympics, Ognell got the gold medal in the 200-meter freestyle and the 4x100 free relay. He retired in 2016, but apparently he's now he's been arrested for having sex with a girl who was 13 at the time. He said, well, what's the big deal? There was no coercion, there was no rape. Well, the big deal is in France, an adult cannot have consensual sex with somebody under 15. Now, in the United States, 15 would be very early age, but this one was even 13, so he's got some problems.
This is a former lawyer at one of the big top-tier law firms, was sentenced to 40 months in prison after pleading guilty to 2 bank robberies and 3 attempted bank robberies in South Florida. Aaron Honecker, 42, of Miami, was sentenced on December 1. The banks robbed were at Coral Gables, Florida, at Ventura, Florida, in September and October of 2020. In one of the unsuccessful robberies, the teller told Honecker that she couldn't provide money because it's in the machine. And in another, the teller told him that she couldn't read English on his demand note and would need help. So those were the attempts. Honecker received $800 in one of the successful robberies and $1,050 in the other. So I don't know what kind of a lawyer he is, but he's a really bad bank robber.
Tragic story from Australia, actually from the island of Tasmania, which is part of Australia, off the coast of Australia.
It's a terrible story.
Hillcrest Primary School in Devonport was celebrating what was for them the end of the school year. Keep in mind, it's summer down there. As a result, there were a variety of different blown up devices, including a bouncy house. And there were apparently 9 children inside of the bouncy house when a strong wind came along and lifted the house 30 feet in the air. 5 of the children fell out and died. The other 4 were injured as the bouncy house came back down to earth. I am sure somewhere there's a lot of investigation going on right now into all the liable parties. Now here, with my limited experience with inflatable devices, they all have an ability to be tethered to the ground.
They all have to be tethered.
They're all stakes. I don't know if that was the true here, but...
I'm also sure that you look at a weather report before you inflate them. This is in Germany. Walking from your bed to your home office now counts as commuting in Germany. A man who slipped down the stairs and broke his back while walking from his bed to home office can file a claim against his employer's insurance after a court in Germany ruled that he was commuting at the time. So it's a work-related injury.
And it's similar in the United States. Back in my legal career, the issue comes up, if you're injured in an accident on the way to work, is that workers' comp? And the answer is yes. That's work-related. And so they have simply taken that concept and applied it to a man walking from his bedroom to his office, which is kind of applying old law to modern facts.
This server received a $4,400 tip at the $100 Diner Club, and then she told the management about it, and then she got fired because of 2 reasons. They were supposed to not leave a tip because that was the setup, and if there was a tip, it was supposed to be divided among the other workers. The concept of the club was for each diner to leave a $100 tip as a way to pay it forward. And the guy who left the tip actually was outside the restaurant and gave it to her on the street for her service, and then management said, divvy it up or you're fired. So it seemed a little harsh.
Perla Aguilar, age 27, lives in Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma City area. 4 kids, 9 months, 5, 8, and 9. She decided she was going to go to work at the local bar because also she likes to drink. When police found the kids, they were inside a house with no heat and 35 degrees outside, and they went and picked up Aguilar, who was slurring her words when she says, "Oh, I do this all the time, and I've never gotten in trouble before." And she is now. The kids have been sent to a family relative, and I'm sure she'll be charged with neglect.
That's it for Legal News and Views, 97.7 FM WAOV. I'm Dave.
I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening.
Are you going next week?
Yes, Merry Christmas, remember?
Merry Christmas.
It's a little more than $31 trillion enough space top Democrats say to carry funding into early 2023.
Fox's Jared Halpern.